Hey everybody, welcome to Watch It or Don't. Tom, Matt, Dan. Today we're going to do a new segment we're going to start called Over Under, where we look at a certain year in film and kind of look at one of our most overrated films of that year and our most underrated films of that year. So we're going to start out with...
Well, of course, we're going to start with 2005.
2005. We figured we'd work our way up to 2015 right now. 2005, 10 years ago. It was an interesting year in cinema.
Yep.
Let's just start with the overrateds.
Okay.
And I'm going to start it off with the best picture from 2005. This is the big one. Crash. Crash won. It was technically the 2006 Oscars, but it was a 2005 film. It's a film about different racial stories in Los Angeles. Lots of different stories interweaving. And it's one of those movies where you see it once and you think, wow, that is so cool how all these stories interweave. It's kind of like the racial Love Actually a little bit.
And I haven't seen it, so you have to keep him honest on this.
You know, the first time I saw Crash, I actually really loved it. And it's very emotional. There's a few parts that really get to you. But then when you rewatch it, I think most people, when they rewatch this, you really start to notice how terrible some of these characters are. And every character kind of follows the same arc where they're just a terrible, prejudiced person, and then they have some big moment of trauma where all of a sudden they become heroic and learn something about themselves. It's just the same story.
Do you agree?
And
told
then
12 different times.
And then they're still racist at the end.
Right. I do like certain parts of this movie, but my most overrated movie of 2005 is Crash. What do you guys think about that?
I still like Crash.
Okay.
But I agree, it's not as good as everyone says it is.
Yeah, definitely.
But I still think it's enjoyable well, not enjoyable, no one likes that, but
yeah.
I think it's a well done movie. It's certainly not amazing, but I see why you're saying it, but I still do like it.
Okay, what's your most overrated, Tom?
My most overrated from 2005 was Cinderella Man.
Okay.
And if you you saw how we reacted to Southpaw, you'll know.
You're not a boxing fan, apparently.
Yeah. I have a hard time caring about boxing. And out of boxing movies, Cinderella Man's probably up there for the better ones for me, but it's kind of just an unremarkable movie, you know?
It's pretty boring.
Yeah, I mean, it was, Russell Crowe, he usually does a good job, and directed by Ron Howard.
Yeah, Ron Howard did it.
Who, Ron Howard, big name. Yeah. I just did not care at all about the entire movie. It was like, all right, that's standard story.
I think I would agree with you, because I remember seeing it, but I don't remember anything about it. So.
Right.
And was that a true story? Or
Jim Brad.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Matt, what's your most overrated?
So this is, I don't know, some people probably won't agree with this because it is sort of an underrated, but it's complicated. I'm going to say Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Okay.
And the reason is because most people try to make this it's a much bigger deal than it really is, but it's got, okay, let me explain. It's got Val Kilmer and it's got Robert Downey Jr.
And directed by Shane Black.
Correct.
Yeah.
And in their career at that point, they're not doing great. I mean, that's the one when they're like, oh, Robert Downey Jr., he was a guy, Kiss Kiss Baby. It's like, yeah, that doesn't really count. It's an okay movie, but people are like, oh, no one's ever seen it, but it's great. I don't like the almost hipsterish sort of connotation it's got of, oh, have you ever seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang? I think it's almost overrated. It is a good movie to see with Robert Downey Jr., but... for Robert Downey Jr., that's like it, other than Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield.
Okay, I gotta fight you on this a little bit.
I knew you were gonna. That's why I was hesitant.
But because, I mean, whether or not it's a before it was cool type thing,
Yeah.
it's still not a popular movie. I mean,
it's not.
It's kind of hard to find people that
I don't like
seen it.
I will say that it is a good movie, but I don't like the kind of mysterious hype it has around it.
I don't know if I.
You can disagree.
You
can disagree,
but
I
feel like that's more in your head.
It could be, but that's why
it's a really funny movie. I'm not saying it's a great movie or anything, but it's enjoyable.
Okay. Well, it's controversial. It was a controversial pick for me.
We'll fight later.
Should I go into my most underrated?
Yeah,
now?
go for underrated.
Since that one was so odd, I'm going to follow it up with probably most underrated, Hostel.
Really?
Which came out in 2005.
I might fight you on this too.
You can. I picked some odd ones. It came out in 2005. Saw came out in 2004, and it kind of started the whole torture horror movie genre. Yeah. And I think it's nice because it is something different. It wasn't quite Saw, and I really liked the end of Hostel. I mean, yeah, it's got some crappy horror acting, but that's a horror movie, so check, that's fine. You're supposed to look the other way on that. But I thought the idea was original enough, and I love the ending considering how cheesy it usually would be considered as a horror movie, and it still holds up pretty
All
good.
right.
The sequels I can't defend, but the first one.
Before I argue too heavily, let me preface this by saying I've never seen Hostel, so maybe I'm not. But my thing is that for one, I just generally have a hard time getting into torture horror movies if there's not a reason to it.
Mm-hmm.
And with something like Hostel, that got really popular. People loved Hostel.
It was popular.
So I don't know how you can call it
underrated.
underrated.
Underrated just because nowadays when people like talk about when it came out, people like, oh, this is great, and then it even got sequels, but now it's just like a forgotten one amongst the Saws and stuff that. And I would say that it is actually pretty good. It was one of the better ones of that genre because Saw got old fast.
Tom, underrated?
All right, my underrated is Everything is Illuminated, directed by Liev Schreiber, starring Elijah Wood. About a young Jewish man who goes to Ukraine to, learn about his grandfather's past. And it's a really, really touching story. It's really got some great humor in it. The dog's name is Sammy Davis Jr., which that you'd appreciate.
I like it. I might watch that movie now.
I mean, it is a really, heartfelt movie, and it's nicely done. It's nothing mind-blowing, but it's definitely something I watched a lot, and I really have strong memories about it.
Yeah, I remember liking it when I saw it, so check it out. Okay, my most underrated movie, I was originally going to say Munich, because that's a Steven Spielberg movie that doesn't get a lot of hype, and I really like Munich. But this is maybe a little controversial. I don't know if it's underrated or not, but I'm going to say Batman Begins. Came out in 2005. Mostly because,
I'll agree. I already agree.
Okay, of the three Dark Knight movies, that is my most watchable one. I think I can go back to that one all the time. It really set the tone for the Dark Knight is a great movie, but it wouldn't be anything without Batman.
It does get the least love,
and I think it's more fun. Like Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises are so dark and grim, and it's tough to watch sometimes. Batman Begins is also pretty dark, but it's got a little more humor. It's a little more fun. It's a little shorter. It just it took that Batman franchise that was completely dead and revived it. I still love Batman Begins. That's my most underrated movie. Any disagreements on that?
Well, when that movie came out, I honestly feel like, I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I felt like it wasn't a huge movie. I remember getting it for Easter, and it wasn't like a huge deal. Like I don't remember being taken to the audience, to the theaters to see it. But it definitely gets less love. Liam Neeson I like, but people only talk about The Dark Knight.
Right.
Yeah.
It gets overshadowed.
It does. So I'll agree with you with that, even though I'm not going to say it's like the best of all time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree, especially because of The Dark Knight, but also just because that was still before, the big superhero phase and stuff.
Yeah.
So, people don't realize quite how important Batman Begins, not Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy as a whole, but Batman Begins itself was.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's 2005. Not a bad year. There's some good movies in there. Stick around for 2006. We'll do that eventually, and we'll kind of work our way up for over and under. Anyway, we're watching or don't. We gotta go. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter, and stick around for more content coming your way.